telling the story. They're still telling the story and leading others to tell the story. And as I watched that marvelous video, I reflected on the fact that no church has ever thought it had enough money. Even Trinity Wall Street. And all churches deal with change and the conflict it engenders. And I like to remind people that in the 1870s, Episcopalians were fighting. They were fighting about whether or not you could put candles on the altar. I missed that one. Give thanks. Give thanks. I'm going to make a few comments just to maybe provide a framework, and then we can talk about whatever you want to talk about until Jim tells us it's time for us to go home. You have a remarkable heritage in 100 years. And 100 years seems like a relatively short time, I think, to some Virginians. But age is not the only sign of grace and ability and giftedness. You have a heritage that has led the people of Charlottesville and indeed of Virginia to look more widely into the world, into places where God is calling you. You give an example of the best of what Anglicanism is about, embracing diversity and challenging others to embrace diversity and to deal with the tension that brings with it. That tension, I'm convinced, is a gift because it forces us to keep on wrestling. If there's no tension, we are so comfortable that we die. We really do. That wide vision of what's possible in the world as Christians is what leads us into mission, leads us into the work of transforming the world into something that looks more like the reign of God. And I'm convinced that that's why we're here. That's what Jesus calls us to be part of. The Anglican Communion about 20 years ago did something wonderful, so give thanks for that. It adopted a framework for looking at mission called the 5 Marks of Mission. And if you have never explored this or heard about it, you can get on the computer and Google 5 Marks of Mission, and it will take you to a website that will give you more information about this. But they're pretty simple. Sharing the good news of the kingdom, teaching, baptizing, and nurturing new believers, caring for hurting human beings in loving service, transforming the unjust systems of this world, and caring for the earth. Caring for the earth. You'll find the first 4 of those referred to or included in what we talk about in our baptismal covenant. But we wrote that prayer book, some of us still call new, at a time when we hadn't really cottoned on to the fact that caring for the earth is part of our vocation as Christians. And it's explicit in the 5th mark of mission. Now, I want to point to the fact that only one of those is primarily what we do within what we usually call the church. Teaching, baptizing, and nurturing believers. That's the work of formation and equipping the saints for the other 4 marks that are primarily out there in the world. And that balance is something that St. Paul's gets. You understand that you are here largely to give yourselves away in that work of transforming the world. The history that you've told here tells that big time. The way you spend your money tells that over and over and over again. The things you get excited about tell about your understanding that you are formed for service, for mission in the larger world. I want to say a couple of things about the ways in which I think the church is beginning to engage the new opportunities around us, and the things that are going to encourage us to change how we do things. The Episcopal Church for a long time did its evangelism by reproduction. We expected that new Episcopalians would come from current Episcopalians. And many of the people in this room remember churches and Sunday schools that were full because Episcopalians had lots of children in the 50s and 60s. That's not so true anymore. St. Paul's, I understand, is blessed with a significant cohort of children and young people. But you've worked at it, and it hasn't just been by reproduction. You've gone looking in the community for people who need the blessing that's present in the community of St. Paul's. The Episcopal Church, and indeed most Christian churches, are being forced to do that kind of work, to get out and do more active evangelism in the world. The communities around us that don't know anything about Jesus or the good news include those who fill out the surveys and say that their religious choice is none of the above. That's the fastest growing religious definition in this country, as it is in Western Europe. The developed part of the world is post-Christendom. Christianity is not the dominant worldview, even in the Bible Belt anymore. Learning new ways to take the good news into communities where people don't know what Jesus has to offer us is a big challenge. And it means we're going to have to learn to do that differently. New communities that we need to enter are often communities that don't look like most people in this room. They're not necessarily white. They don't necessarily speak English. They're not necessarily gray-haired. They may be in some places. But the people around us, even in this part of Virginia, don't look exactly like the people in this room. That's an opportunity. God's calling us out there to meet people we may initially think are radically different from us. We discover when we get to know them that we share a great deal in common, as I'm sure those of you who worked in the Africa Project have discovered. When we connect as people of faith, we discover how much we do share. The work that you're hoping to undergird in a stronger way has to do with offering pastoral care within this community. That work is for the larger work of mission. And people who aren't adequately formed or nurtured in this community don't have all the gifts they need to share their ministry in the world. That's an essential piece of the work that you do together as a church community. Ann Wilms is doing a remarkable job from all I hear and talk to her about. Undergirding the community life here is essential. And you understand very well that it is meant to be given away. Let me point to the fourth mark of mission, about transforming systems of injustice. I was really struck in seeing the video and reading some of the history of this community, how courageous and forceful you have been in standing